Well, good morning, everybody. It is Saturday, January 25th, and we've had kind of a bit of a Arctic blast for the past couple of weeks here. Specifically, this past week, we had ambient temperatures down in the negative 14, negative 15 area. Wind chills down around negative 25, so it's been quite chilly, and just been kind of trying to survive. So naturally, on a farm, what's the first thing to take a crap when you got cold temperatures like that? Well, it's usually things that require flowing water. And I see she didn't thaw out. This is our big water out here next to the freestall barn. And this thing, the other day, stopped flowing. Finding out that beef cattle don't drink quite the amount of water that a dairy cow did. So that's an adjustment period here. This is the first real cold weather we've had since we got rid of the dairy herd. This is the second winter through, but anywho's, it froze in there in the parlor where it comes up out of the ground. Had to run a propane heater on that, get that thawed out. And now, we think it's froze under that water out here. So yesterday, Dad and I went and got a little 1,000-watt heater and stuck it up on. Now this does have a heating element in it that drops down into this tank in here. It's a submersible heating element, and we think it's froze down at the ground. So we actually put a heater up underneath here, a little 1,000-watt electrical heater, and used the power source that normally heats that little cubicle in there for heating the bottom, trying to thaw it out. We have yet to prevail on that. It is quite chilly again this morning. It's about 8 degrees, and we've been watering them through a little trough there we drug out here and filling that, stretching a hose from the milk house to get these guys some water. We do that several times throughout the day, but haven't been able to scrape the past week. It's been concrete. Like I said, we've had temperatures down around that negative 14, negative 15 area. Wind chill's quite cold, so haven't been able to scrape. You can see this is pretty well concrete. So this morning, Dad and I are we usually bed on Saturdays. At least the freestall barn here, we usually put sawdust in here on Saturdays. So it's Saturday, we're gonna attempt to do the usual Saturday chores. So we're gonna flush these cattle from the feed barn over to the freestall barn and take the scraper, see if we can knock off the highs out here. But hopefully, mainly we can get the alleyways clean in there, because that stays a little warmer in there, because, well, it's not out in the open air, and cattle when they're in there kind of warm that building up some. So I'm gonna flush these cattle out of here and see what we can make happen this morning. But as you can tell, it ain't very warm. So we're gonna see what we can make happen here. Come on, guys, you gotta go in the barn. Come on. I know, I've been dragging a hose and watering you, so you think it's time to cuddle. We gotta go. Hey. Hey. In the barn, come on. No, no, no. Well, I think beef cattle, when they get cold, they get energized. I don't know what it is about them. They get all wound up. got myself in a predicament. This is a really tight corner here, and kind of having an issue with my tractor not wanting to turn, and also I'm getting stuck on that. Not sure how this is going to pan out here. This is a very tricky turn. When you back in to go around, you have to be close to the bunk on that side, so when your front end swings, don't run into here and knock out boards. You can see where in years past things have gotten damaged. And also, so that gate that's on this side of the wall doesn't meet that corner of the box scraper and rip the gate off the wall. Had to fix that plenty of times over the years with employees. This is froze down so solid in here, when I turn, it's getting stuck. Front end don't want to do anything. Back end just spins. You get hooked on frozen manure. The brakes are useless in this cold weather. And yeah, this is a bit of a challenge in situations like this where we haven't been able to scrape for several days because it's been frozen. Well, that's load number one. Only got half of the freestall barn cleaned at the moment. Well, 2/3 I should say, because I already started on the west side as well. I hate cold weather. It makes everything suck, to say the least. All right, Dad, I can. Watch out, guys. I'm bringing you water. If you listen real close, you can hear that heater down the bottom of there running. Go on, don't mess with me. As long as nobody stands on my hose, we'll be all right. And somebody's on my hose. You. No, no. Get off the hose, dum-dum, dum-dum. Well, barnyard's all scraped, cattle are watered. Dad's gonna work on the second round of chores here as far as feeding everybody. They had their early morning feeding, now they're gonna have well, you can hardly call it mid-morning feeding anymore because it's darn near noon, and I gotta grind a batch of feed for the finishers, so that's what I'm gonna work on if I can stop dropping my junk here. So I'm gonna get the feed grinder tractor fired up. She's probably gonna have to run for a little bit to get it thawed out. It's the only bad thing about, well, not the only thing, but one of the bad things about cold weather and older equipment here. You gotta get them fired up and get the oil circulating because you don't have any steering. I don't know if it's a all tractor thing or if it's just an old international thing. I don't know, but you gotta get that oil pump in order to get it thin enough to get it all the way up there to the hand pump so we got steering. So gotta get her fired up and warming up here. Trick I found trying to get fluids pumping on this thing. If you kick on the PTO, that tends to get things circulating, but I probably wouldn't recommend doing that under load in cold temperatures. But that feed grinder is empty, so all it's doing is spinning an empty little auger in the bottom, so it isn't going to hurt anything. But I suppose if you had a full batch of feed in there, being that the oil's cold and thick, it might not flow good enough to get the optimal amount of pressure to engage your PTO clutches, and I suppose you could potentially glaze the clutches if you're not using the old noggin. So, but like I said, she's empty, so all it's doing is moving an empty 4-inch, or maybe that's a 6-inch auger in the bottom of that thing, I'm not sure. Anyways, trying to warm up, and I guess first step is mineral, bean meal, shelled corn. She's gonna go in the finisher batch over there, and every time we mix, we will have, I shouldn't say, well, it's a TMR mixer, but that's a feed mixer. And a TMR mixer is what we actually make our rations with. But every time we'll feed, then we'll have our grain for our batch that we have. And we've been feeding out of ag bags. It is, I guess with the beef cattle we have on farm here, on this particular farm, there's not enough demand for feed to bother filling the upright silos. I didn't really care for the upright silos anyway, so I don't necessarily miss those things. Someday they'll probably get decommissioned and torn down. But we're feeding out of ag bags, and this type of weather, you can see it's pretty well frozen around the outside there. And we bring that over here and we dump that in our ag bag conveyor, which then goes through the wall of the old feed room there into the mixer and drops in there. And we've got 2 bins back here, and the one used to be dry cow and the other one used to be milk cow. Now we just have the big one for the finishers. The small one someday might get moved, but it is an old, and watch out for frozen stuff. It is an old PAX bin, and it is showing its age like all PAX bins do, and starting to rust out at the bottom. So I don't know if we'll bother really moving it anywhere or not. And that's a different style funnel, thanks PAX, compared to everybody else. So you can't get that style funnel anymore now. You can kind of retrofit, which we have on some of the other bins over here in it. I don't know if you're really worthwhile or not, but you know, on a farm you sometimes gotta pinch some pennies here and there, and that's does happen to be, boy, that's pretty icy right there. It does happen to be something that happens every now and then. So I'm gonna, you know, make my way across my skating rink here and get back to my tractor. If anybody has any suggestions on what to use for supplement bin drop tubes, I'd appreciate the advice. These are those giant leaf vac hoses that we can get from a local supplier, and it's not cheap, and in this kind of weather this stuff is like concrete, and as soon as you go to bend this, it tears in between the reinforcements here, and you end up having to duct tape it. And I'm quite fed up of doing this. I'm sure you can probably pick it up on camera, but if you can't, this is a giant Arctic glacier here. It's quite treacherous walking around out here. It's a problem we always have this time of year. Get that hard snowpack on the ground, sun come out, temperatures might be right about that freezing point, enough to thaw the hard pack that's on the driveway, and overnight it flash freezes. Now, we have not had thawing temps in a couple weeks here, but the last thawing temps, you can see what it created for us. Like I said, you drive across that and you pack that down, and it's way to end up on your noggin is walking around out here. Alrighty, well, got a little shot here this afternoon. I can work in here, so that's probably where I'm going to be, because it's sunny and 65 in here. Well, sunny and 60. So, yeah, I'm going to take that over what's out there. It's cold. Yeah, it says it's 19 degrees right now. I don't know if I believe that. It's all cold, but alrighty. So I'm sure a few of you remember this thingy here that was sitting off the side in plenty of videos across the years. Off the side with just frame, cab. Well, we're back on this project. So I haven't really filmed anything of this that I can think of. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, some proprietary stuff on here that I'm not really allowed to show. At least how some of these systems work. That's what I'm putting on here. And then, obviously, I don't know too many pullers that go around saying, oh yeah, that's how I built my chassis from, you know, top to bottom. It's kind of a little bit of a hidden gem there in the pulling community where you just don't really tell everybody what you've done. But today's project, we are going to pop this axle back out of here, burn in some mounts that I have placed on here, and get that burn in. Got some bump stops sitting over there I made the other day. We're gonna go ahead and get them welded on underneath and try and finish out the rest of the chassis work I got going on here, because kind of the next thing on the list for this thing is paint prep and paint. And then we will bring the cab back in that has now been banished to the winter abyss outside on my deck over trailer. And once this is painted and all that fun stuff, then that'll come back in here. The cab will go on. And then it's a matter of making bed mounts for the bed sides I have, get those put on here. And then that engine back there in the back corner that's been sitting there for a little while, it's not going to be lime green. I don't like lime green. I bought that engine used for a heck of a deal, so that's why it's lime green. Thinking we're going to go with that marine tan that Cummins offers. So I think we're not actually going to buy the marine tan from Cummins, but that's the color that we're going to put on that engine. And then I got to get a clutch in. That was Friday's deal I was trying to get done. Ran out of time, had to make a call and get some more spec'd out, and didn't get around to that. So that's on Monday's list. But waiting on some front suspension components that I have on order. Sounds like that might be a month. And we're not going to sit here idle for a month. So we're going to get back to plugging away on this thing. I've been on this thing quite a bit since about December 31st. I've been in here any chance I get, kind of hammering out stuff on this thing, because I started this process on the first chassis back in 2019. Fall of 2019 is when I brought home the first truck that I was going to build into a Polar. And well, I had a street bike and I sold a street bike, and I thought, well, when I sold the street bike, well, I gotta get another toy to replace the street bike. I don't ride the street bike anymore because I got kids, and well, now it's been gone for a hot minute. But so I decided, well, we're gonna build a Polar. Used to pull years back, 2.6 class, just kind of hit or miss here and there. I'd like to do it, and never had a competition purpose-built chassis. And so that started out in about early 2020. We started working on a 99 24 valve that we were working on, and just happened to find quite the deal on some parts, and decided, well, we're going to bump up to a newer chassis. And went with a 2006 chassis, well, 2007 chassis that was, well, it was nothing. This was literally a pile of parts. I shouldn't even say chassis. There's two frames made into one frame here. It's a rust-free California frame from pretty much the cab back, and it was a two-wheel drive frame that was hitting the front. Front frame horns were tweaked, so we sectioned in a four-wheel drive front section out of an 05 truck, so we have kind of a hybrid here. And the rear axle's out of a semi. That's not meant to be in a 3/4 ton pickup, so that's that. And front axle is just a 9 1/4 Chrysler axle. Nothing too fancy there. Obviously some expensive parts inside of it. But yeah, I've built everything pretty much from ground up on this truck. I started with a pile of parts and I made a truck. The cab is rust-free from Texas. The doors are off of a 1500, 07 1500 that I bought in Columbus and parted out because, well, I just needed the doors. And turns out rust-free doors in the state of Ohio are quite expensive. And I made out quite like a bandit on that deal. I PC parted that thing out and actually basically gotten my parts and then made a bunch of money off of everything else. So all that has been bankrolled and stashed, and we're slowly releasing some of those funds to build this. To get into this type truck is not cheap. It is not easy. If you're going to buy one, you're talking six figures on some of them. Not all of them, but some of them. I don't have that kind of money. I'm just a poor broke white farmer in Smithville, Ohio. So, yeah, I build it myself. And we're getting real close. Long ways to go yet, but getting close. We're at the stage where we can almost paint a chassis. And that is exciting to me because this journey started about 5 years ago. And I don't know if this is anything anybody's really interested in. I think a few guys have mentioned in the comments they're interested in seeing it. And I'd be more than happy to film on this chassis once we get to the point I can kind of cover up some stuff that's kind of, I don't want my competition to know I have. And also, there's some components on here that are, patented, and I can't release how that's built. So maybe I'm reading into that a little bit too much, but when they pretty much have written on their schematic, when you're putting something together, to not release this to the general public without prior authorization, yeah, I kind of take that kind of seriously. So I'm not going to bother showing a whole lot of that on here. But definitely after the body's on, most of that's covered up, well, then we can kind of hammer it out. But yeah, this is a Limited Pro diesel chassis. It's 4-wheel drive. It's a full-time 4-wheel drive because of how we built this thing. And yeah, a lot of expensive parts on here. Took a long time to bankroll a lot of that money, and a lot of that money was made by PC Parting Out Trucks. I think I've parted out about 3 or 4 different trucks by now. So yeah, it's like all things, you know, everything costs a whole bunch of money. Everything takes a long time. The only way to get to those, you know, levels in life, you have to sacrifice, and you have to just put your nose to the grinding stone and get to it. And that's what this has been. It's taken a lot of work and a lot of time to get to this point. I don't take anything for granted that is on this truck, because I fought tooth and nail to get where I'm at on this thing. And I am crossing my fingers that we go out for the 2025 season and this thing is just a dead hitter. I mean, it just does what it needs to do. And I think it will. I think I've put a lot of thought and engineering into this thing. I think it'll turn out pretty good. I hope it turns out pretty good. I hope this summer we get to have some really cool videos of going around Poland. Obviously, farm work takes priority. You know, first things first, get the work done, make sure bills are paid, make sure everybody's got a roof over their head and food to eat. And then you can play. But doesn't leave a lot of time when it comes to farming. You're 24/7, 365. You know, you got cattle, they need fed, watered, bedded, you name it, you have to do it. And this is takes second place. Well, not even second place, because, you know, there's a lot of things to go there. Faith, family, farming, all that. But, alrighty. I'm going to quit yapping and start welding some things out, because I don't have too much time in here this afternoon, and I want to get something done. Well, we're winding the day down here. Dad just went out to drive. Just went down to water the cattle again one last time before calling it a day, and the water is free. So, happy about that. I'll make chores much nicer tomorrow for Sunday. And then we won't have to worry about dragging hose and all sorts of fun stuff. So, just used a Utilitech, I think it's 1,000 watt. Maybe it's 1,500 watt. Little heater, nothing fancy. And you got your plug right there for your submersible heater that's already in your water. And just instead of using that plug for that thing, we used a plug for the heater, shooked it underneath the thing, and she's been running for about 24 hours now. But finally did it. But man, why was it hot under there? I think I want to turn the heater down just a little bit. So for future reference, maybe don't set the heater on kill. But hey, it thawed it, so that's all I care about. So cows have all the water they want now. Not that we were depriving them, but now they have it, you know, more consistently throughout the day whenever they want it versus in scheduled times. So anyways, got the axle back underneath here. Got my mounts burned in good enough where I really doubt they're going to go anywhere. If they do, we have a lot of problems. And got some temporary piece of angle iron in here holding her in. So right now she's actually rigid. There is no spring right now. But got to wait for them to come in. Like I mentioned before, I think sounds like it's probably going to be about a month. Which is not ideal, but, you know, nevertheless, we can keep going. I at least have everything fabricated out here and welded in. And I'm sure the guys over at the place I ordered the parts from are probably tired of hearing me call, hey, I need this measurement or that measurement so I can, you know, figure out this, figure out that. See, typically they use a universal type mount down there at the bottom. in this application, and I don't like universal stuff. It's kind of cheapy. So I made them. I think they look pretty decent. And yeah. Another reason for wanting a plasma table, that would be very, very nice. Or a water jet. But water jet's a lot more money than plasma. Plasma's enough. I mean, I got the old Sparky back there, but that's not set up for CNC. That's something I would really love to get into. But again, I don't do that for a living, so it's kind of one of those, well, yeah, it'd be nice to have, but do we really need it? No, not really. So, alrighty, well, I'm gonna make sure there's no random fires brewing in here from welding, which there's not. And now I'm gonna go grab my kiddos from the in-laws. My wife's off up in Cleveland working tonight, so she's gonna be out and about for a while, the way it sounds. And I'm hungry. Not so much cold. So I have a really serious question for any of the females in the audience. So, hypothetically, you head out of town to go to work, and you take your husband's truck because your husband's truck doesn't have enough room for the kiddos, and in husband's truck is keys to the fuel pump here on the farm, and also his wallet. Do you A, give him your car to pick up the kiddos with a 1/8 of a tank, or do we B, give him a car with at least a half a tank? It's a serious question. I really would like to understand the female brain and why in the world it is that you guys are always on E. I don't understand it. I go to town like once a month, and my truck has at minimum like 1/4 of a tank in it. Ah. Thanks, honey. Now I gotta go get cash and go do the 20 on pump 5 deal.